Chapter 1. A Gentle Invitation. Come now, dear listener, and let the cares of the day slip away, like soft sand sifting through your fingers on a quiet shore. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and feel the gentle weight of your body settling into a place of calm, where the world grows soft and distant, like a whisper carried on a breeze. Tonight, we embark on a soothing journey, a story woven from dreams of struggle and serenity, of gold not just in coins, but in the quiet treasures of time and trust. Picture yourself wrapped in a warm, velvety blanket, the kind that holds you close, its edges frayed from years of gentle use, promising rest and peace. Let each breath carry you further into a realm where nothing hurries, where every moment unfolds slowly, like petals opening to the first light of dawn. Imagine a night so still that the stars seem to pause in their dance, their soft glow spilling across a sky as vast as your dreams. The air is cool, scented with the faint sweetness of wildflowers, and the earthy warmth of a village long ago, where lanterns flicker with a tender light, casting shadows that sway like a lullaby. You are safe here in this tranquil space, where the story of a poor man's journey to gold awaits, not a tale of rush or triumph, but a gentle unfolding like a river, finding its way to the sea steady and unhurried. Feel your shoulders soften, your thoughts drift, as the world around you fades into a hush, leaving only the rhythm of your breath and the promise of a story to guide you toward sleep. This tale speaks of wealth, not in the clamor of coins or the weight of gold, but in the quiet accumulation of moments of trust, of patience, of human connection, that glow brighter than any treasure. As we begin, let your mind wander to a humble village, nestled between rolling hills and a winding river, where life moves slowly, each day a gentle step in the dance of time. The story will carry you through the life of a man who began with nothing but dreams, his path lit by the soft light of hope and the wisdom of those he met along the way. Let your eyelids grow heavy now, your body sink deeper into rest, knowing that each chapter will wrap you in calm, inviting you to drift closer to the peaceful shores of sleep. Chapter 2. The Boy in Poverty. The village slept under a quilt of stars, its thatched roofs nestled quietly between rolling hills, where the river whispered softly as it wound its way through the valley. In a small, weathered cottage at the edge of the village, a boy named Elias lived with his mother, their home lit by a single lantern that cast a warm, golden glow across the cracked clay walls. The air inside was heavy with the scent of bread baked that morning, its crust now cooling on a wooden table, and the faint sweetness of dried herbs hanging in bundles from the rafters. Outside, the night was gentle, the chirp of crickets blending with the distant murmur of the river, a lullaby that seemed to cradle the world in its arms. Elias was young, no more than 10, his hands already rough from gathering firewood and carrying water from the well, his small frame moving with a quiet determination through the daily tasks that kept their humble life afloat. Each morning he rose with the first light, the sky blushing pink over the hills, and walked the dusty path to the village square, where he sold bundles of kindling or ran errands for the baker, the weaver, or anyone who could spare a coin. The coins were few, small and worn, but he carried them home with care, placing them in his mother's hands, her smile soft and tired, her eyes reflecting a love that made the cottage feel warmer than any fire. Their life was simple, woven from the threads of necessity, yet there was a quiet beauty in its rhythm. Elias would sit by the hearth in the evenings, listening to his mother hum an old tune, her voice as gentle as the breeze that rustled the wildflowers outside. The firelight danced on her face, tracing lines of care etched by years of toil, yet her hands moved with grace as she mended a torn shirt or stirred a pot of thin soup. The boy watched her, his heart full of a quiet resolve to ease her burdens, to find a way to bring more than coins to their table, a dream that flickered like the lantern's flame, small but steady. The village itself was a tapestry of modest lives, its cobblestone paths worn smooth by generations of footsteps, its market stalls alive with the soft hum of voices bartering for grain, cloth, or eggs. Elias knew every corner, every face, the old miller who tossed him an apple when no one was looking, the widow who told stories of the sea beyond the hills, her voice as soothing as the river's flow. Yet poverty was a constant companion, not cruel but ever present, like the shadow cast by the hills at dusk. It was in the patched clothes Elias wore, the single blanket they shared on cold nights, the way his mother's eyes lingered on the empty pantry, her thoughts drifting to a future she could only hope for. But even in this simplicity, there was a richness that money could not measure. Elias found it in the way the dawn painted the hills with light, in the laughter of children playing by the river, in the quiet moments when he and his mother sat together, her hand resting gently on his her stories, filling the air with dreams of far-off places. Wealth, he began to sense, was not just in coins or gold, but in the trust they placed in each other, in the love that held their small world together. These thoughts came to him softly, like the first stars appearing in the evening sky, not demanding attention, but settling quietly in his heart. As he lay in bed at night, the straw mattress rustling beneath him, Elias would listen to the sounds of the village settling into sleep, the creak of a shutter, the soft lowing of a cow, the river's endless song. His dreams were simple, yet they glowed with a quiet hope, like the lantern that burned through the night, its light a promise that tomorrow would come, gentle and new. He did not know then that his path would lead him beyond the village, that the lessons of these quiet days would shape a journey toward something greater. For now, he was content to drift, his thoughts softening, his breath slowing, as the night wrapped him in its calm embrace. Dear listener, as you hear of Elias's humble beginnings, let your own heart settle, your body sink into the softness of this moment. Picture the village, its lantern-lit cottages, the river's gentle murmur, and feel the peace of a life lived simply yet richly. Let your breath match the slow rhythm of the night, each inhale drawing in calm, each exhale releasing the day's weight. The boy's story is just beginning, a tale of quiet steps toward a future unknown, and you are here, carried gently along, toward a place where dreams bloom softly, like wildflowers under a starlit sky. Chapter 3. The Market Lessons. The village market woke slowly, as if stirring from a gentle dream. its cobblestone square, bathed in the soft golden light of early morning. The air carried the scent of freshly baked bread, ripe apples, and the faint tang of herbs bundled in neat piles, mingling with the earthy warmth of the river that flowed nearby. Elias, now a young man of 16, stepped into the market with a basket of kindling balanced on his shoulder, his footsteps light but deliberate, each one echoing softly against the stones worn smooth by years of quiet trade. The stalls were coming to life, their wooden frames creaking as merchants unfurled awnings, their voices a low hum, like bees in a summer meadow, calling out their wares with a rhythm that felt as old as the hills. This was Elias's first true venture into the market, not as a boy running errands, but as a participant. His small bundle of coins, tucked carefully in a cloth pouch at his side, earned from months of gathering wood and helping the miller. His heart beat steadily, not with fear, but with a quiet curiosity, like a river finding a new path through familiar stones. He paused by a stall, piled high with bolts of cloth, their colors muted in the dawn, light deep blues, soft greens, and the warm red of clay. The merchant, an older woman with silver hair and eyes that crinkled like autumn leaves, smiled gently, her hand smoothing a piece of linen as if it were a treasure. "Choose carefully, lad," she said, her voice soft as a lullaby. "Every coin you spend is a choice, a step toward something new." Elias listened, his eyes tracing the patterns of the market, the way the baker weighed flour with a steady hand, the way the potter arranged his wares, each cup and bowl placed with care, as if each held a story. He watched the villagers barter, their voices calm but firm, exchanging eggs for thread, apples for a loaf of bread, each transaction a quiet dance of trust. He began to see money not as mere coins, but as a language, a way to weave connections between people, to build something lasting. The market was a living thing, its rhythm slow and steady, like the breath of the village itself, and Elias felt himself drawn into its flow, his thoughts softening as he learned its ways. He spent his first coin that day, not on cloth or bread, but on a small sack of seeds, their promise of growth tucked inside their tiny shells. The seed merchant, a man with hands rough as tree bark, spoke of patience, of how a single seed could become a harvest if tended with care. "Money buys seeds," he said, his voice low and warm, "but time and trust grow the crop." Elias held the sack gently, feeling the weight of those words, their truth settling into him like the warmth of a fire on a cold night. He saw now that wealth was not just in having, but in waiting, in believing that small acts could bloom into something greater. As the sun climbed higher, the market grew busier, yet its pace remained gentle, unhurried, like a song played on a well-worn lute. Elias moved from stall to stall, listening more than speaking, his eyes wide with the lessons unfolding around him. He noticed how the merchants watched each other, not with envy, but with a quiet respect, each one part of the market's delicate balance. A weaver shared a loaf with a blacksmith. A farmer offered a basket of berries to a tired mother. These were not transactions of coins, but of trust, of a shared understanding that the village thrived when no one stood alone. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, a sense that he, too, could belong to this rhythm, could learn to speak its language. By day's end, he sat by the riverbank, the market's hum fading into the soft lapping of water against the shore. The sack of seeds rested in his lap, its weight a quiet promise, like the stars beginning to peek through the dusk. He thought of his mother, her tired hands, her gentle smile, and how these seeds might one day ease her burdens. Money, he realized, was a tool, not a treasure away to plant dreams, to nurture hope, to build trust with the world. The river sang its endless song, its notes blending with the evening breeze, and Elias felt his eyelids grow heavy, his breath slowing as if the market's lessons were settling into his bones, guiding him toward a future he could only begin to imagine. Dear listener, as you rest in this moment, picture the market's gentle bustle, its colors and scents wrapping around you like a soft blanket. Feel the weight of Elias's seeds, the quiet hope they carry, and let your own thoughts drift. Like the river's current, slow and serene. The market's lessons are simple, yet profound: trust, patience, connection, and they invite you to let go, to sink deeper into calm. Let your breath match the rhythm of the water, each inhale a moment of peace, each exhale a step closer to sleep. As Elias's journey unfolds gently, carrying you toward dreams as soft as the starlit night. Chapter 4. The Rich Man's Tale. The village settled into the quiet of late afternoon, the sun casting long golden shadows across the cobblestone square, where the market's hum had softened to a gentle murmur. Elias, now a young man with eyes bright with curiosity, sat on a warm bench near the baker's stall, the scent of warm bread lingering in the air, mingling with the faint sweetness of wildflowers carried on the breeze. His sack of seeds rested beside him, a small weight of hope, and his thoughts wandered, soft and unhurried, like the river that wound through the valley. It was then that an older man, dressed in fine but faded robes, approached, his steps slow and deliberate, his face etched with lines that spoke of years well lived. His name was Amos, a merchant known in the village for his wealth, but more for his quiet wisdom, shared not in boasts, but in stories told under the shade of old trees. Amos settled beside Elias, his presence calm, like a stone smoothed by a river's patient flow. "You've been watching the market, lad," he said, his voice low and soothing, like the rustle of leaves in a gentle wind. "But do you know how it all begins? Not with coins, but with dreams." Elias turned to him, his heart open, ready to listen, as the older man began a tale, his words weaving a tapestry as soft as the twilight now settling over the village. It was a story of his own youth, a time when he, too, had nothing but the dust on his feet and a heart full of quiet hopes. "Long ago," Amos began, his eyes gazing past the market to the hills beyond, "I was no richer than you are now. My days were spent carrying water, mending nets, and dreaming of a life beyond the village. But one day, I found a single coin, dropped in the dust by a careless traveler. It gleamed in the sunlight, small but heavy with possibility." He paused, letting the words settle, his hands resting gently on his knees, as if cradling the memory. "I could have spent it on bread or cloth, but instead I bought a spool of thread, not much, but enough to start. I wove a small basket, sold it for 2 coins, then used those to buy more thread. Slowly, patiently, I built from that 1 coin, not by rushing, but by trusting each step. The story unfolded like a river finding its way, each word flowing into the next, calm and unhurried. Amos spoke of long days in distant markets, of bartering under starlit skies, of learning to read the needs of others, not just for goods, but for trust, for connection. "Wealth," he said, his voice soft as the evening breeze, "is not in the coins you hold, but in the choices you make with them. A single coin, spent with care, can grow into a fortune, not because of its weight, but because of the time and trust you give it." Elias listened, his breath slowing, his mind sinking into the rhythm of the tale, as if each word were a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending gentle ripples through his thoughts. Amos's eyes twinkled, reflecting the fading light, as he spoke of mistakes made along the way, deals gone wrong, coins lost to haste, yet each one a lesson, a step toward understanding. The market is a teacher, he said, but its lessons are quiet, revealed only to those who listen with patience. He described how he built his wealth, not in a rush for gold, but in the slow weaving of relationships, in the trust he earned from merchants and villagers alike. His voice was a lullaby, each sentence long and flowing, wrapping Elias in a sense of calm, as if the story itself were a blanket, soft and warm. The village grew quieter, the last market stalls closing, their awnings folded like petals at dusk. The scent of bread gave way to the cool, earthy air of evening, and Elias felt his eyelids grow heavy, his body sinking into the bench, as Amos's tale wove its final threads. "I started with nothing," Amos said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I learned that wealth is not a destination, but a journey of small steps, of trusting the slow unfolding of time." He smiled, his face soft in the twilight, and Elias felt a warmth in his chest, a quiet understanding that his own path, too, could begin with something small, like the seeds in his sack. As Amos rose to leave, his robes rustling softly, he placed a hand on Elias's shoulder, a touch as gentle as a falling leaf. "Keep listening, lad," he said. "The market, the world, the stars, they all have stories to tell, if you're patient enough to hear them." Elias nodded, his thoughts drifting like clouds across a moonlit sky, the tale settling into him like a seed planted in fertile soil. The village was silent now, save for the river's gentle song, and Elias felt himself carried closer to rest, his heart full of the rich man's words, his dreams glowing softly, like lanterns in the night. Dear listener, as you linger in this moment, let Amos's tale wrap around you, its lessons as soothing as the breeze that carries the scent of wildflowers. Picture the village square, the fading light, the quiet wisdom shared between two souls under a starlit sky. Feel your breath slow, your body soften, as the story invites you to trust in time, in the gentle unfolding of your own journey. Let Elias's quiet hope guide you, his dreams mingling with yours as you drift closer to sleep, carried by the calm rhythm of a tale that promises peace, that whispers of treasures, found not in gold, but in the heart's quiet knowing. Chapter 5. The Stranger by the Road. The sun dipped low, painting the hills with a soft amber glow as Elias walked the dusty path that wound from the village to the fields beyond. His sack of seeds hung lightly at his side, its weight a quiet reminder of the market's lessons, while the air carried the scent of sun-warmed grass and the faint tongue of river water. The world was hushed, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird settling into its nest. Elias's steps were slow, unhurried, his thoughts drifting like clouds across a twilight sky, still warmed by the rich man's tale of patience and trust. The path stretched ahead, lined with wildflowers that nodded softly in the breeze, their petals catching the last light of day. As he rounded a bend, where the path dipped toward the river, Elias saw a figure sitting by the roadside, beneath the sprawling branches of an old fig tree. The stranger was cloaked in a robe, faded to the color of dusk, his face weathered yet kind, his eyes deep and calm, like pools reflecting the stars. He sat on a smooth stone, his hands resting lightly on his knees, as if he had been waiting there for years, patient and still, a part of the landscape itself. Elias slowed, his heart stirring with a quiet curiosity, and the stranger lifted his gaze, offering a smile as gentle as the evening breeze. "Sit a while, young traveler," he said, his voice low and soothing, like the murmur of the river nearby. "The road is long, but its lessons are found in pausing." Elias settled on the grass beside the stone, feeling the cool earth beneath him, grounding him in this moment of unexpected encounter. The stranger's presence was calming, like a lantern's glow in the gathering dusk, and Elias felt no need to speak, only to listen, as if the air itself held wisdom waiting to unfold. The stranger's eyes traced the horizon, where the hills blurred into the soft haze of twilight, and he began to speak, his words flowing slowly, each one deliberate, like pebbles placed carefully in a stream. "You carry seeds," he said, glancing at the sack. "But do you know what they truly hold? Not just roots and leaves, but time and the trust you give it." The stranger's tale was not of markets or coins, but of something deeper, something that felt as old as the hills themselves. "Wealth," he said, his voice soft as a whisper, "is not in what you hold, but in what you let grow. A man may chase gold, but it is the quiet moments, the waiting, the tending, the trusting, that bring true riches." He spoke of a gardener he once knew, who planted a single tree and waited years for its fruit, never rushing, never doubting, trusting the seasons to bring their reward. "The tree grew," the stranger said, "not because of the gardener's haste, but because of his patience, his belief that time would weave its magic." Elias listened, his breath slowing, his body sinking into the rhythm of the stranger's words, which seemed to blend with the sounds of the evening, the rustle of leaves, the faint ripple of the river, the soft hum of crickets waking to the night. The stranger's wisdom was not sharp or demanding, but gentle, like a hand guiding a boat along a calm current. "True wealth," he continued, "is in the heart's quiet trust in yourself, in others, in the world's slow turning. Gold may buy bread, but only time and trust can feed the soul." He paused, his eyes meeting Elias's, and in that moment, Elias felt a warmth, a sense that these words were a gift, meant to settle deep within him, like seeds waiting for their season. The fig tree above them swayed gently, its leaves casting dappled shadows that danced across the ground, and Elias felt his eyelids grow heavy, his thoughts softening, as if the stranger's voice were weaving a blanket around him. The stranger spoke of the road ahead, not as a race, but as a journey to be walked slowly, each step a chance to learn, to grow, to trust. "You will meet others," he said, "and each will offer something, a lesson, a story, a moment. Hold them gently, for they are your true fortune." His words faded into the evening's hush, and Elias felt a peace settle over him, as if the world itself were inviting him to rest. As the stranger rose, his cloak brushing the grass like a whisper, He placed a hand on Elias's shoulder, a touch as light as a falling leaf. "Keep walking, young one," he said, "but walk slowly, and let time be your guide." Then he turned, his figure blending into the twilight, leaving only the echo of his words and the quiet of the night. Elias sat a while longer, a sack of seeds warm in his hands. The river sung a lullaby that seemed to carry him closer to sleep. The stars were brighter now, their light soft and steady, and Elias felt his heart full, not with answers, but with a calm trust in the path ahead. Dear listener, as you rest in this moment, picture the quiet roadside, the fig tree's gentle shade, the stranger's soothing voice blending with the evening's calm. Feel the cool grass beneath you, the soft breeze on your skin, and let your breath slow, matching the rhythm of the river's flow. The stranger's wisdom is yours, too a reminder that wealth lies in patience, in trust, in the quiet moments that shape a life. Let Elias's encounter guide you, his heart open to the night's gentle lessons. As you drift closer to sleep, carried by the soft current of a story that whispers of peace, of time, of dreams waiting to bloom under a starlit sky. Chapter 6. The Lost 20 Years. The evening deepened over the village, the sky a soft tapestry of indigo, woven with threads of silver starlight. Elias sat by the riverbank, the sack of seeds resting beside him, its quiet weight a gentle anchor in the stillness of the night. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint sweetness of wildflowers, while the river murmured softly, its waters catching the starlight like a mirror of dreams. The stranger's words still lingered in Elias's mind, their rhythm blending with the night's calm, urging him to trust in time, to walk his path with patience. As he gazed at the water's gentle flow, his thoughts drifted soft and unhurried to a story he once heard whispered by an old villager under the shade of the market as oldest oak. Tale of a man who lost 20 years chasing wealth. The story began in a village not unlike Elias's own, where a young man named Torin lived, his heart burning with a quiet but restless dream of gold. Torin was strong, his hands calloused from work in the fields, but his eyes were always fixed on the horizon, searching for a path to riches that would lift him from the dust of poverty. One day, a traveling merchant passed through, his cart laden with silks and spices, his voice full of tales of distant cities where fortunes were made. "Gold waits for those who chase it," the merchant said, his words sharp and bright, like coins glinting in the sun. Torin listened, his heart quickening, and he decided to leave his village, to seek the wealth that seemed to shimmer just beyond his reach. For 20 years, Torin wandered, his steps hurried, his days filled with the clink of coins earned and spent, each one a fleeting promise of more. He traded in bustling markets, sailed across stormy seas, and bartered in cities where towers touched the sky. He gained gold, yes, but each coin came at a cost. Sleepless nights, friendships left behind, moments of quiet joy traded for the next deal. The stars he once watched with wonder became mere markers of time, urging him to move faster, to chase harder. Yet the more he gained, the emptier he felt, as if the gold he sought was slipping through his fingers, like sand from the riverbank where Elias now sat. One evening, weary and worn, Torin returned to his village, his hair gray, his hands heavy with coins, but his heart light with regret. The fields were still there, the river still sang, but the faces he knew were gone, replaced by new ones who spoke of him as a stranger. He sat beneath the same oak where he'd once dreamed, and there, in the quiet of twilight, he understood what he had lost. 20 years, not of gold, but of time, of moments with those he loved, of laughter shared under starlit skies, of the simple joy of watching a seed grow into a tree. Wealth, he whispered to the wind, his voice soft as a sigh, is not in what you hold, but in what you cherish. Elias felt the story settle into him, its lesson as gentle as the river's flow. Torin's tale was a mirror, reflecting the stranger's wisdom, the rich man's words, all pointing to the same quiet truth. That time is the truest treasure, more precious than gold, more enduring than any fortune. Elias's fingers brushed the sack of seeds, their promise of growth, a reminder to move slowly, to trust in the seasons, to let life unfold without haste. The night air wrapped around him, cool and soothing, and he felt his breath slow, his body sink deeper into the earth, as if the river itself were cradling him. The village slept around him, its lanterns dim, their light flickering like memories in the dark. Elias thought of his mother, her gentle smile, and of the market, its lessons of trust and patience. Torin's 20 years were a caution, a whisper to choose differently, to value the moments that make a life rich not in coins, but in connection, in the quiet beauty of a life well lived. The stars above seemed to nod in agreement, their light steady and calm, and Elias felt his eyelids grow heavier, his thoughts drifting like leaves on the water's surface, soft and weightless. Dear listener, as you rest by this imagined riverbank, let Torin's tale weave its way into your heart, its message as soothing as the night's embrace. Picture the village, the starlit water, the sack of seeds that holds not just growth, but time itself. Feel your breath slow, matching the river's gentle rhythm, each inhale drawing in peace, each exhale releasing the day's weight. Elias's journey, like yours, is one of quiet steps, of trusting in the slow unfolding of life. Let the story carry you now, its calm current guiding you closer to sleep, where dreams bloom softly, like stars reflected in a still, endless river. Chapter 7. The First Investment. The village woke gently, as if stirred by the soft breath of dawn, the first light spilling over the hills in a cascade of gold and rose. Elias rose early, his heart steady, but alive with a quiet anticipation, like the faint hum of a distant melody. The sack of seeds, now carefully stored in the corner of his mother's cottage, had become more than a purchase from the market. It was a promise, a small spark of possibility that glowed in the quiet moments before sleep. The air was cool, scented with the earthy richness of dew-kissed grass and the faint sweetness of bread baking in a neighbor's hearth. Elias stepped outside, his breath visible in the morning chill, and felt the world around him pause, as if waiting to see what he would do next. He had saved a few more coins since his day at the market, each one earned through long hours of gathering wood and helping the miller grind flour, their weight light in his hand, but heavy with meaning. Today, he decided, would be different, not a day of labor for others, but a step towards something of his own. The stranger's words echoed softly in his mind, urging patience, while Amos's tale of a single coin's growth stirred a quiet resolve. Elias walked toward the village square, his steps slow and deliberate, the cobblestones cool beneath his feet, each one smoothed by the passage of countless others who had walked this path before him. At the edge of the market, where the stalls were just beginning to open, Elias found a small plot of land, no larger than the floor of his mother's cottage, tucked beside the baker's stall. It was a patch of earth often overlooked, its soil dark and rich, kissed by the morning sun. The baker, a kind man with flour-dusted hands and a laugh like rolling thunder, had mentioned it in passing, saying it could be rented for a modest sum, enough for a young man to try his hand at growing something new. Elias stood before it, his coins clinking softly in his pouch, and felt a gentle tug in his chest, a mix of quiet worry and budding trust, like the first green shoot breaking through the soil. He knelt, his fingers brushing the earth, feeling its cool, damp texture, as if it held secrets of growth waiting to be unlocked. The sack of seeds was with him, their promise now ready to be tested. He handed his coins to the baker, who nodded with a warm smile, his eyes crinkling as he said, "Plant with care, lad, and let time do the rest." Elias felt a flutter of uncertainty. Would the seeds grow? Would the rains come? Would the harvest be enough? Yet beneath the worry was a deeper calm, a trust in the lessons he'd learned, in the slow, steady rhythm of the world. He planted the seeds that day, each one pressed gently into the soil, his hands moving with care, as if each seed were a wish whispered to the earth. The days that followed were quiet, filled with the soft routines of village life, the creak of cartwheels, the laughter of children by the river, the distant lowing of cows. Elias tended his plot each morning, watering it with a clay jug, his movements slow and deliberate, like a ritual that soothed his heart. He watched the earth, waiting for signs of life, his thoughts drifting to the stranger's words about time, to Amos's story of a single coin's growth, to Torrin's lost years chasing gold. The worry was still there, a faint shadow, but it was softened by a growing trust, not just in the seeds, but in himself, in the quiet act of beginning. One morning, as the sun rose in a haze of soft pink, Elias saw the first green sprouts, tiny and fragile, pushing through the soil, like stars breaking through a twilight sky. His breath caught, not in triumph, but in a quiet awe, as if the earth itself had whispered back to him, promising that his trust had not been misplaced. He sat by the plot, the scent of fresh growth mingling with the morning air, and felt a warmth spread through him, as if the sprouts were not just plants, but a sign that small steps taken with care could lead to something greater. The village moved around him, its rhythm steady and calm, and Elias felt himself sinking deeper into its flow, his heart lighter, his thoughts softer. The investment was not just in the seeds, but in the act of waiting, of believing in the unseen, of trusting time to weave its gentle magic. The stars began to appear as evening settled, their light a quiet reminder that growth, like wealth, comes not in a rush, but in the slow unfolding of moments, each one a treasure in itself. Dear listener, as you rest in this moment, picture Elias by his small plot, the tender sprouts reaching for the sun, the village wrapping him in its calm embrace. Feel the cool earth beneath your own hands, the soft breeze carrying the scent of growth, and let your breath slow, matching the gentle rhythm of the morning. Elias's first investment is a step toward trust, toward patience, and it invites you to let go, to sink deeper into peace. Let the story carry you now, its quiet promise guiding you closer to sleep, where dreams sprout softly, like green shoots under a starlit sky. Chapter 8. The Family of Merchants. The village hummed softly under the midday sun, its cobblestone paths warmed by light that spilled like honey over the hills. Elias, now a young man in his early 20s, stood by his small plot of land, where the seeds he had planted had grown into rows of sturdy plants, their leaves green and vibrant, swaying gently in the breeze. The air was rich with the scent of earth and blooming herbs, mingling with the faint sweetness of ripe fruit from a nearby orchard. His first investment had borne fruit, not just in the harvest he now gathered, but in the quiet confidence that had taken root in his heart, like a seed nurtured by time and trust. Each morning, as he tended his plot, Elias felt the village's rhythm wrap around him, its steady pulse a reminder that growth was a journey, not a race. One afternoon, as he carried a basket of his harvest to the market, Elias met a family of merchants, their stall a vibrant patchwork of woven baskets, clay pots, and bundles of dried herbs. The family, led by an older woman named Mara, worked together with a quiet harmony, their hands moving in unison, as if guided by an unspoken song. Mara's hair was streaked with silver, her eyes warm and knowing, like the river reflecting the stars at night. Her sons and daughters, each with their own tasks, laughed softly as they arranged their wares, their voices blending with the market's gentle hum. Elias paused, drawn to their stall, not just by the goods, but by the sense of connection that seemed to radiate from them, like warmth from a hearth. Mara noticed him, her smile as gentle as the breeze, and beckoned him closer. "You've grown something fine there, young man," she said, her voice low and soothing, nodding at his basket of vegetables. "But tell me, what do you grow in your heart?" Elias hesitated, his fingers brushing the rough weave of his basket, and then spoke of his small plot, his first steps in the market, and the lessons he'd learned from Amos and the stranger by the road. Mara listened, her eyes never leaving his, her presence steady, like the oak that shaded the village square. "Come," she said, "sit with us and hear a story of how wealth is built, not by one, but by many, over time." They sat in the shade of their stall, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of lavender and thyme. Mara began her tale, her words flowing slowly, like a river finding its way through familiar stones. She spoke of her great-grandfather, a weaver who started with a single loom, his hands steady as he wove blankets that warmed the village through cold winters. He had little, she said, but he had family, and together they built more than blankets. They built trust. Her great-grandfather taught his children who taught theirs, each generation adding to the work, not just with goods, but with care with shared. Dreams with a belief that wealth was not in gold alone, but in the bonds that held them together. The family story unfolded like a tapestry, each thread a moment of cooperation, of patience, of trust passed down through years. Mara described how they learned to trade not just in the village, but in distant markets, their carts rolling through dusty roads under starlit skies. They faced losses, storms that ruined crops, deals that fell through, but they faced them together, their strength in their unity. One person can plant a seed, Mara said, her voice soft as a lullaby, but a family can grow a forest. Elias listened, his heart full, seeing in their story a reflection of his own hopes, his own small steps toward something greater. As the market bustled gently around them, Mara's daughter offered Elias a cup of cool water, its taste clean and refreshing, like the river after a spring rain. Her son shared a handful of dried figs, their sweetness a quiet gift. Elias felt a warmth, not just from the food, but from the sense that he was part of something larger, even if only for this moment. The family stall was more than a place of trade. It was a living testament to the idea that wealth grows not in isolation, but in connection, in the slow weaving of lives together. Mara's eyes met his, and she said, "Your plot is a beginning, Elias. But think of those you'll share it with friends, family, strangers. They are your true harvest." The sun began to dip, casting long shadows that danced across the cobblestones, and Elias felt his thoughts soften, his body relax, as if the family story had wrapped him in a blanket of calm. He saw now that his journey was not his alone. It was tied to the village, to the people who shared its paths, its stories, its quiet hopes. The market's hum faded into the evening, the scent of herbs lingering in the air, and Elias felt his eyelids grow heavy, his breath slowing, as if the world itself were inviting him to rest. Dear listener, as you linger in this moment, picture the market stall, the family's gentle harmony, the soft light of dusk settling over the village. Feel the warmth of their shared story, the quiet strength of their bond, and let your breath slow, matching the rhythm of the evening breeze. Elias's encounter is a reminder that wealth is not just in what we gain, but in what we share, in the connections that grow over time. Let the story carry you now, its calm threads weaving you closer to sleep, where dreams bloom softly, like a forest grown from a single seed under a starlit sky. Chapter 9. The Rise of Fortune. The village bloomed under the soft light of early summer, its fields a patchwork of green, kissed by sunlight that danced across the hills like a gentle tide. Elias, now in his late 20s, moved through the market with a quiet confidence, his steps steady on the cobblestones, each one echoing faintly, like a memory of the boy he once was. His small plot had grown into a thriving garden, its rows of vegetables and herbs, a testament to years of patient tending, their leaves rustling softly in the breeze, carrying the earthy scent of fertile soil and the faint sweetness of blooming lavender. The air was warm, alive with the hum of the market merchants calling softly, baskets creaking, the laughter of children weaving through the stalls like a melody. Elias's journey from a boy carrying kindling to a man with a garden of his own had been slow, each step deliberate, like a river carving its path through stone. His harvests, once small enough to fit in a single basket, now filled a cart he pushed to the market each week, its wooden wheels creaking gently, a rhythm that blended with the village's heartbeat. He had become a familiar face among the stalls, his vegetables prized for their quality, his herbs sought for their fragrance. Yet it was not just the goods that drew people to him. It was his quiet presence, his way of listening, of offering a kind word or a fair trade, as if each exchange were a thread in a larger tapestry of trust. One spring, Elias took a new step, his heart steady but alive with the same quiet anticipation he felt when planting his first seeds. With coins saved from years of careful trading, he bought a small stall of his own, its wooden frame weathered but sturdy, standing proudly beside Maros' family of merchants. The act felt like planting another seed, not in soil, but in the market's flow, a commitment to grow beyond his garden, to weave himself deeper into the village's rhythm. He arranged his wares with care-bright carrots, leafy greens, bundles of thyme, each placed as if it were a treasure, their colors glowing softly in the morning light. The scent of fresh earth clung to his hands, grounding him as he greeted passers-by with a gentle smile, his voice calm, inviting trust. As weeks turned to months, Elias's stall became a cornerstone of the market, not just for what he sold, but for how he sold it, with patience, with fairness, with a quiet belief in the value of connection. He bartered with the baker for bread, traded herbs with the weaver for cloth, and shared stories with Maros' family, their laughter a soft echo under the market's awnings. His wealth grew, not in heaps of gold, but in the steady flow of coins that came and went, each one a step towards something larger. He began to invest beyond his stall, buying a share in a miller's grain or a fisherman's nets, each choice made with the same care he'd given his seeds, trusting time to bring its reward. The village noticed his rise, not with fanfare, but with a quiet respect, like the way the river was admired for its steady flow. Elias felt the weight of their trust, not as a burden, but as a gift, like the warmth of the sun on his shoulders. He thought often of Imus's tale, of the stranger's wisdom, of Torin's lost years, and of Maros' family, their stories woven into his own. Wealth, he saw now, was not a single moment of triumph, but a slow accumulation of choices, of relationships, of moments shared under the market's gentle hum. Each coin he earned was a seed, planted not to hoard, but to grow, to nurture a life richer than gold. As evening fell, Elias would sit by his stall, the market quieting, its lanterns casting soft pools of light across the cobblestones. The air grew cool, scented with the faint salt of the distant river and the sweetness of ripe fruit left unsold. He'd watch the stars emerge, their light steady and calm, and feel his thoughts soften, his body relax, as if the market itself were cradling him. His rise was not a leap, but a gentle climb, each step taken with care, each moment a treasure in its own right. He felt no rush, only a deep trust in the path unfolding before him, like a river finding its way to the sea. Dear listener, as you rest in this moment, picture Elias at his stall, the market's soft glow wrapping around him, the scent of herbs and earth a soothing embrace. Feel the warmth of his quiet success, the steady rhythm of his journey, and let your breath slow, matching the gentle cadence of the evening. Elias's rise is a reminder that wealth grows in patience, in trust, in the small acts that bloom over time. Let the story carry you now, its calm flow guiding you closer to sleep, where dreams unfold softly, like leaves in a summer breeze, under a sky of endless stars. Chapter 10. The Test of Trust. The village glowed softly under the late afternoon sun, its cobblestone paths bathed in a warm golden light that seemed to linger like a gentle caress. Elias, now a seasoned trader in his early 30s, stood at his market stall, his hands arranging bundles of herbs with care, their earthy fragrance mingling with the faint sweetness of ripe apples from a nearby cart. His stall, once a modest wooden frame, had grown sturdy with years of use, its shelves lined with vegetables and dried flowers, each one a testament to his patient journey from a boy with a sack of seeds to a merchant woven into the village's heart. The air was calm, carrying the soft hum of the market, the creak of a cartwheel, the low murmur of voices bartering, the distant ripple of the river winding through the valley. Elias's success had brought him more than coins. It had earned him trust, a currency heavier and more precious than gold. His name was spoken with warmth by the baker, the weaver, and Mara's family, their smiles a quiet acknowledgment of his fairness, his care, his steady presence. Yet today, a new choice lay before him, one that stirred a faint ripple of uncertainty in his heart, like a pebble dropped into a still pond. A merchant from a neighboring town, a man named Gabriel, with a voice as smooth as the river's flow, had come to the village with a proposition. He spoke of a new venture, a cooperative of traders, pooling their resources to buy grain in bulk from distant fields, promising a steady supply for the village and a share of the profits for those who joined. The idea was tempting, its promise glowing like the lanterns that lit the market at dusk. Elias had coins saved, tucked carefully in a small wooden box beneath his mother's cottage floor, each one earned through years of tending his garden and trading at the stall. But to join Gabriel's venture meant placing those coins in another's hands, entrusting them to a plan that stretched beyond the village's familiar hills. He stood by his stall, his fingers brushing the rough texture of a time bundle, feeling the weight of the choice. Trust, he knew, was the root of wealth, but it was also a leap, a step into the unknown, like planting a seed without knowing if rain would come. That evening, Elias walked to the riverbank, where the water reflected the fading light, its surface shimmering like a mirror of dreams. He sat on a smooth stone, the same one where he'd met the stranger years ago, its cool surface grounding him as he turned Gabriel's words over in his mind. The stranger's wisdom echoed softly. Wealth lies in trust, in the patience to let time unfold its gifts. Amos had spoken of starting with a single coin, Mara of building with family, and Torn of the years, lost chasing gold too quickly. Each story was a thread in the tapestry of Elias's life, and now this moment asked him to weave a new one, to trust not just in himself, but in another. He met Gabriel the next day, under the shade of the market's old oak, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. The merchant's eyes were steady, his voice calm, as he explained the venture's details, the fields they'd buy from, the traders who joined, the slow but steady return they hoped for. Elias listened, his heart quiet but alert, feeling the weight of his coins, not as a burden, but as a choice. He thought of his mother, her gentle smile, and of the village that had cradled him through years of growth. To trust Gabriel was to trust the market's rhythm, the village's heartbeat, the unseen hands that would carry his coins into the future. With a slow breath, Elias handed over his coins, their clink soft but resolute as they passed into Gabriel's keeping. The moment felt like planting a seed, The same quiet hope, the same gentle fear, the same trust in time's unfolding. Gabriel nodded, his hand closing around the coins with care, and Elias felt a warmth, not of certainty, but of peace, as if the act of trusting was itself a kind of wealth. The market bustled softly around them, its rhythm unbroken, and Elias returned to his stall, his hands moving again among his herbs, their scent a reminder of the earth's steady promise. As night fell, Elias sat by his cottage, the stars emerging like soft lanterns in the sky. The air was cool, scented with the faint salt of the river and the warmth of baked earth. He felt his body relax, his thoughts drifting like leaves on the water, carried by the story of his choice. Trust was a seed, he thought, planted in the dark, its growth unseen but certain, waiting for time to reveal its fruit. His eyelids grew heavy, the village's quiet wrapping around him like a blanket, and he felt himself sinking closer to sleep, the weight of his decision a gentle anchor in the night. Dear listener, as you rest in this moment, picture Elias by the river, the stars above him, the weight of trust settling softly in his heart. Feel the cool night air, the gentle ripple of the water, and let your breath slow, matching the calm rhythm of the story. Elias's test is a reminder that wealth grows in the quiet act of trusting, in the courage to let go and believe. Let the tale carry you now, its soothing current guiding you toward sleep, where dreams bloom gently, like stars reflected in a still, endless river. Chapter 11. Reflection on Wealth. The village lay wrapped in the gentle hush of twilight, its cobblestone paths glowing softly under the fading light of a summer sky. Elias, now in his later years, sat on a wooden bench outside his cottage, its weathered frame nestled against the hill, where the river curved like a silver thread through the valley. His hair was streaked with gray, his hands rough from decades of tending gardens and trading at the market. Yet his eyes held a quiet brightness, like stars that had seen countless nights but never dimmed. The air was warm, scented with the earthy richness of sun-baked soil and the faint sweetness of wildflowers, their petals swaying in the evening breeze. The village was still, save for the soft ripple of the river and the distant hum of crickets, a lullaby that seemed to cradle the world in its arms. Elias's stall had long since grown into a cornerstone of the market, its shelves filled with the fruits of his labor vegetables, herbs, and flowers that drew villagers and travelers alike. His investments from the first seeds to the grain venture with Gabriel had blossomed over time, not into heaps of gold, but into a steady flow of coins that supported his mother's comfort, his neighbors' needs, and the dreams of a new generation. Yet as he sat, his gaze drifting to the horizon where the hills met the stars, Elias thought not of coins, but of the journey that had brought him here, a journey woven from moments, from lessons, from the quiet voices that had guided him along the way. He thought of the stranger by the road, his words soft as a breeze, speaking of wealth as trust in time's slow unfolding. Those words had been a seed planted in Elias's young heart, growing through years of patient choices. He remembered Amos, the rich man whose tale of a single coin had shown him that wealth begins with a single step taken with care. Torin's story, whispered under the market's oak, had been a gentle warning, a reminder that time, not gold, is the truest treasure. And Mara's family, their harmony a living testament to the wealth of connection, had taught him that no fortune is built alone. Each figure was a thread in the tapestry of his life, their lessons woven into every choice, every quiet moment of trust. Elias's fingers rested on the bench, its wood smooth from years of use, and he felt a warmth, not from the coins in his keeping, but from the life they had helped him build. Wealth, he mused, was not in the weight of gold, but in the weight of moments, the laughter shared with his mother as they ate bread from his earnings, the nod of respect from a fellow merchant, the joy of watching a child run through the market with a flower from his stall. These were the riches that endured, that glowed brighter than any coin, that settled in the heart like stars in a clear night sky. The river sang its endless song, its notes blending with the evening's calm, and Elias felt his thoughts drift, soft and unhurried, like leaves on the water's surface. He saw now that his journey had been a circle, not a line each step forward, a return to the lessons of his youth, to the trust he'd placed in the world's gentle rhythm. The village had been his teacher, its people his guides, their stories a map that led not to gold, but to understanding. Wealth was in the time he'd spent listening, in the patience he'd learned, in the quiet acts of kindness that rippled outward, like the river's waves touching distant shores. As the stars grew brighter, their light soft and steady, Elias felt his body relax, his breath slow, as if the night itself were inviting him to rest. He thought of the boy he'd been, carrying kindling through the village, dreaming of a life beyond poverty. That boy was still within him, his hopes now fulfilled, not in riches, but in the peace of a life well lived. The cottage behind him glowed faintly its lantern, casting a warm light through the window, and Elias felt a deep contentment, a sense that all was as it should be, that time had woven his dreams into something richer than he could have imagined. Dear listener, as you rest in this moment, picture Elias on his bench, the village quiet around him, the stars a gentle canopy above. Feel the warmth of his reflections, the soft rhythm of the river, and let your breath slow, matching the calm of the night. Elias's journey shows us that wealth is not in what we hold, but in what we carry, moments, trust, love, woven through time. Let the story wrap you now, its gentle threads guiding you closer to sleep, where dreams bloom softly, like wildflowers under a starlit sky, carrying you into a peace as deep and endless as the river's flow. Chapter 12. Closing sleepy reflection. The village rested under a velvet sky, its stars twinkling like lanterns hung by an unseen hand, casting a soft, silvery glow over the cobblestone paths and thatched roofs. Elias, now an elder with silver in his hair and wisdom in his eyes, sat on the familiar bench outside his cottage, the wood worn smooth by years of quiet evenings. The air was cool, scented with the faint sweetness of wildflowers and the earthy warmth of the river that wound through the valley, its gentle ripples singing a lullaby as old as the hills. The world was hushed, save for the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirp of crickets, weaving a tapestry of calm that wrapped the village in its tender embrace. Elias's life, once marked by the weight of poverty, had grown into something rich, not in heaps of gold, but in the moments that filled his heart. His stall, now tended by younger hands, stood as a quiet legacy in the market, its shelves still brimming with the fruits of his garden, each vegetable and herb a testament to the seeds he'd planted long ago. His investments, from the small plot to the grain venture with Gabriel, had woven him into the village's heartbeat, his coins a bridge between dreams and reality. Yet as he sat, his gaze tracing the stars' gentle arc, Elias knew that his true wealth lay not in what he'd gained, but in what he'd learned, what he'd shared, what he'd carried through the years. He thought of the stranger by the road, whose words of patience had been a seed planted in his youth, blooming into a life of trust. Amos, the rich man, had shown him that a single coin used with care could grow into something lasting. Torin's tale of lost years had taught him to cherish time above gold, and Mara's family had woven the lesson of connection, of wealth built through shared dreams. Each story was a star in the sky of his life, their light guiding him through decades of quiet choices, of moments that glowed brighter than any coin. Wealth, he mused, was in the laughter of his mother, now long at rest, in the trust of the villagers who called him friend, in the soft pride of watching the market thrive. The river's song grew softer, its rhythm blending with the night's calm, and Elias felt his body settle, his breath slow, as if the world itself were cradling him. He saw his life as a garden, tended with care, its harvest not just of crops, but of memories, each one a treasure, each one a gift. The cottage behind him glowed faintly, its lantern casting a warm light through the window, a beacon of the home he'd built, not with gold, but with love, with trust, with time. The stars above seemed to nod, their light steady and gentle, whispering that all was well, that his journey had been enough, that wealth was in the heart's quiet knowing. Elias's eyelids grew heavy, his thoughts drifting like leaves on the river, soft and weightless, carried by the current of a life well lived. He felt no need to hold anything tightly, not coins, not time, not even memories, for they were all part of him, woven into the fabric of his being. The village slept around him, its lanterns dim, its paths silent, and Elias felt himself sinking deeper into peace, as if the night were inviting him to rest, to let go, to trust in the dreams waiting just beyond the horizon. Dear listener, as you rest in this moment, picture Elias on his bench, the stars above him, the river's gentle song wrapping him in calm. Feel the cool night air, the soft scent of wildflowers, and let your breath slow, matching the rhythm of the water's flow. Elias's wealth is yours to share not in gold, but in the quiet treasures of time, of trust, of moments that linger like stars in a clear sky. Let the story cradle you now, its soothing current carrying you closer to sleep, where dreams unfold gently, like petals under a moonlit sky. Close your eyes, dear friend, and let the village's calm, Elias's peace, guide you into a rest as deep and endless as the river's song, where all is well and sleep waits to hold you softly.